All right, so we're doing miracles. And just before we read the scripture tonight, we're going to read the definition here. A miracle is an event that seems inexplicable by natural or scientific laws and accordingly gets attributed to some supernatural cause. And miracles and wonders and works, same thing, are simple and natural works of God. So as we read the scripture tonight, we're going to be doing the wedding at Cana. I thought we would be doing 2 passages, but there is so much with the wedding of Cana. We'll do just that tonight and get to the feeding the thousands next week. Okay. Now, but we have to remember the wedding, the wedding at Cana is from the book of John. Okay. And it is only found in the book of John. So I thought we'd just do a little bit on the book of John so that we can kind of get an idea of where this all falls together and where it came from. Okay, first of all, unlike the synoptic gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke, which kind of tell history, and it's a very it's not all historical, but it's meant to tell the specific teachings of Jesus, spell them out and whatnot. The book of John, okay, is not history. It is a devout fantasy, a religious prose poem. Now, let's remember the book of John is said to have been written by John the Apostle, okay? And so he is expressing his thoughts, all right? And remember, he was there with Jesus lot, but he and the whole book of John is based on the fact that John believes that Jesus was the Messiah, and he was and don't forget, John was the youngest of the apostles, and he was just totally enamored and embracing Jesus. So you have to keep that in mind as we go through this and talk about this wonderfully cultured story. Okay, but before we start, now I have to tell you something. When I first studied this with Dr. Erico in one of his classes, it was on the book of John, and he talked about this, and he said, well, the wedding at Cana is not a miracle. Well, I have to say that I got up and left the class. Okay. So, but since then, of course, I have come to understand what it's all about. So if you want to kind of get upset, well, that's okay. Not a problem, because here again is some of these things that aren't exactly what you may have learned in the past. Okay, so Cana, just a little map. Cana was near Nazareth, but remember, everybody walked, so it was near, but it was still several miles. I don't know how many. Okay, and remember, this is Galilee. That Galilee is where Jesus taught the most, and that's because he was accepted in Galilee. He wasn't really accepted in Jerusalem. Okay. So now we got to look at this setting. Keep in mind, and we're going to read the wedding at Cana. All right. Weddings in the ancient Near East, okay, lasted for 3 days or 7 days, depending upon the economic status of the family. Poor people, their weddings were only 3 days. Rich people, 7 days, if you can imagine. Now, another kind of disclaimer here. I don't know how many of you are from the north, but if technically, if you are from the north, you probably know about, I call them northern weddings, but whatever, Italian, Polish, up north, they do weddings up good. And there's lots of drinking and whatnot. And believe it or not, that's the way the weddings were in Jesus' time. And so, at the wedding, there was much drinking and drunkenness. The men, it's like they were expected to drink because it was a great honor to become drunk at weddings. So it will help if you're familiar with those to understand this. However, Jesus was sober. Okay. Now, so let's go ahead and read this scripture. On the 3rd day, there was a marriage feast in Cana, a city of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the marriage feast. And when the wine ran low, his mother said to Jesus, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "What is it to me and to you, woman? My turn has not yet come." His mother said to the helpers, "Whatever he tells you, do it." And there were 6 stone jars placed there for the purification of the Jews, which could hold several gallons each. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. Then he said to them, "Draw out now and bring it to the chief guest of the feast." And they brought it. Okay. Hold on just a minute. I forgot to put water in. Bear with me, please. Okay, sorry about that. So let's take a look now. We're going to look, we've got some Aramaic language differences in here. So when we read the KJV, it says, "Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come." Now, when you go to the Lamsa Bible, "What is it to me and to you, woman? My turn has not yet come." And to paraphrase it correctly, it's, "This is not our concern, mother. It is not my turn to buy the wine for the wedding feast." So this is another example of how the translation differs. And when Dr. Lamsa does it, it has different meaning. Why? Because he lived he spoke the language and he lived the life. So the Aramaic word, okay, used there is Shah. Now, it could mean hour, time, or turn. But once again, you had to know the context. And that's why Dr. Lamsa said that it is turn, because he knew the wedding customs. And that's what we're studying too, but he knew the wedding customs. And so he knew it was not, mine hour is not yet come. Now you can imagine if you look that up, that mine hour, I mean, the interpretations of that and the takeoffs on that is incredible. But it's my turn has not come. And then, all right, the KJV and all the people that interpret from the KJV feel that Jesus was disrespectful when he said all this. But no, not so. The term ata means woman, but it's a polite and respectable form of speech. It is equivalent to madam. Jesus was not rebuking his mother, nor did he speak harshly to her. Okay. So now let's take a little bit more look at the setting. Okay, the men sat on the floor on one side of the room. Now, I really would love to have pictures of this, but it's if you look on Google and on the web, the pictures of the wedding at Cana are just atrocious, and they are no more authentic. They have tables and and there were no tables. They sat on the floor. All right, and so it's the custom for male celebrants attending the wedding to keep the wine flowing. Okay, and at the celebration, like we said, men sit on the floor in a line in the order of their age and social standing. The rich, honorable, and noble sit in high places. The poor and least important men sit in lower places. But both the poor and rich may drink and rejoice. So again, if you can just kind of picture this, the men were sitting on the floor on one side of the room, and on the other side of the room sat the women. Mary, the Jewish mother, okay, supposing it was Jesus' turn to treat the guests, made a sign to him with her eyes. Now, remember, I mean, she didn't just get up and go over to Jesus and say, it's your turn, nor did she holler like we would, because that wasn't the culture. Women did not, women actually didn't speak to men in public at all. So just, she gestured, okay? Her facial expressions and gestures were saying, they have no wine, they're running out of wine. You must do your part now. And if you know anything about Jewish mothers, you can understand she was, she wanted her son to do right, okay? So Mary then turned to the servants who was standing near her and whispered to them that they should do whatever Jesus might request of them. All right, and another cultural thing here. See, it said this also meant that Jesus sent them to procure wine. She would pay for it. All right, Mary and Jesus had come a distance from Nazareth to Cana. In the Near East, when a mother and son travel together, the mother usually holds the family purse. Why? Because bandits would not rob a woman. So that was nice of them. So, and the other thing about this whole this whole thing is, whoops, Mary, and no one there actually, but Mary hadn't the least thought that Jesus would perform a miracle. Okay, this was a straight out cultural thing, and Mary had no reason. Remember, she didn't even know. I mean, she was still mystified when Jesus was 12. What was going on? So, okay. So, to continue the scripture, and when the chief guest tasted the water that had become wine, he did not know whence it had come, but the helpers knew, who had drawn the water. Then the chief guest called the bridegroom and said to him, every man at first brings the best wine, and when they have drunk, then that which is weak. And okay, then that which is weak. But you have kept the best wine until now. Okay. Notice there's nothing in here about Jesus blessing the wine or whatever. Okay. And the only statement that we only have a statement here that says that the water had become wine. All right. And so religious men who attend banquets may not only decline to purchase wine for the guests, but may also urge male guests to stop drinking. They know the danger that drunkenness poses during wedding feasts. As it often happens during this time, overindulgence in wine can result in quarrels and perhaps even lead to unintentional murder. Generally, religious men refrain from drinking at these banquets. They would make every effort to help pacify the guests who keep insisting on having more wine. It would be scandalous for a holy man to order more wine, and instead he will often suggest water. Okay? When the wine began to decrease, Jesus did not order more wine, nor did he pray over the jars to change the water into wine. You notice it didn't say that. He simply ordered the servants to give the guests water, which, according to the chief guest, which is like the master of ceremonies, tasted best of all. And Jesus never claimed during his ministry that he changed water into an intoxicant. All right. Now so let's go to some more basic. Okay, so what we're saying, all right, he doesn't say he blessed the water. Okay, and the drunkenness, the people that were drunk, if you can imagine a wedding for 3 days or perhaps 7 days and drinking wine all the time, you can imagine what it would be. And so Jesus, obviously he recognized this, okay, and we have to remember, okay, water is the most precious liquid in the world. Also, water was more sacred than wine. Water was much more scarce than wine. That's why they drank it. And so when he hold on, let's go back here. So when the master of ceremonies said, well, they've saved the best wine to last, which normally is not done because, you know, even today, you drink the best stuff first, and then you don't even know the difference. So that's kind of what we're saying here. And so what we're saying is it was water. Why did it taste so good? Because like I say, water is very scarce. They weren't used to drinking it, but it tasted really good. And so we'll talk about in a minute. I just wanted to mention here when it says this is the first miracle now which Jesus performed in Cana of Galilee. Now, John did not write that. Okay, what we have in the Bible, what we have in the Bible and lots of places, is these. Okay, we say this is added by scribes. When the scribes are writing down the stories, then they would put that in there, and it makes it difficult for those who believe that God wrote the Bible, and things like that. But it makes people it makes people nervous. but it is what happens. This is scribal notes, and it's okay because you have to understand the Bible. The Bible is let's see. Dr. Lambda says the Bible is a library full of books that contain many stories inspired by God. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because John probably didn't even recognize it as a miracle. Now, was he awed by it? Sure. Because remember, he's writing to show that his Jesus, his master was the Messiah. So he was awed by it, probably, or maybe not, because again, these were people in that culture, not our culture. All right, now let's see what else we got. Okay, we did that. So we have said water is the most precious liquid in the world. People can live without wine, but no living creature can survive without water. All right, Jesus didn't bless the water, and then it became wine. At least that's not in the passage. Okay, so one of the things here, all right, because we don't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak. All right. We also wish to say that in no comment we're not denying the efficacy. We're not, I hate that word, efficacy of Jesus' power to do anything miraculous. Was he capable? Yes, that's what, okay. But the issue never is, could he? But did he perform certain things? So, and the reason, Jesus would never, the people would ask him for signs. Show me a sign. Show me a wonder. I mean, he did his healings, but they would ask him specifically, okay, well, show me a sign. But Jesus always refused the demands that were made on him to perform some sort of sign or magic. Okay. And of course, he did not pose as a magician, which there were many back in those days, just musicians. Okay, so now I want to go back to last week. I told you this article came up of Dr. Lamsa's, boom, it just appeared. And it really, it just really helped me to understand, and hopefully it helped me, because many people are offended by this. Okay, as I was when I first, heard it, but the way that Dr. Lamsa puts it here, it kind of, for me, it kind of smooths that thing where we say, well, it's not a miracle. This kind of smooths it out. So Dr. Lamsa said, miracles and wonders are simple and natural works of God. We classify them as miracles and wonders simply because we do not know their true nature. Think about it tonight. Nor do we understand how they are performed. But when we know the spiritual purpose, and tonight it's kind of like the cultural background, they cease to be looked upon as miracles and wonders and are seen spiritually as natural things. When they are introduced to our eyes or our perception, we look upon them with awe, but sooner or later, they become natural and understandable. And that just ties in with the whole, we said we teach the spirit of the word here, and we do. And the more spiritually aware you become, the more you understand Jesus' message about the kingdom and the counsel and the guidance of God in your life, then these aren't like miracles per se. So now to kind of go back to our original definition, a miracle is an event that seems inexplicable by natural or scientific laws, and accordingly gets attributed to some supernatural cause. So, was this a miracle? Let's and that's our. All right, let's kind of let's kind of go and let's see what everybody thinks about this.